Hello, my Facebook family. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am here with two of my favorite people, my co host, Rebecca Williams, and our guest host, John W. Branch Jr. Hello,
How
John.
y'all doing this evening?
He's our resident conservative.
Hello,
We want yes, that's right. That's right. Yes, we call John in. Well, John is our friend most of all, but he is. We know that he is going to be able to shed light on some things that we may have a difficult time understanding. And if nothing else, he's going to try to explain to us exactly why things may be viewed in a different way.
Mhm.
And that's what it's all about. Because I'll tell you this much: if nothing else, Rebecca and John, we know that people's political viewpoints, people's perspectives are all born of what their experiences and life experiences have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And mine have been one thing, yours have been another, John's have been another. And we all have a wonderful perspective to bring to the table. And I think we sort of represent a myriad
Mhm.
of different ideas and and people. But let's jump right into it. We wanted to especially bring John here today because there have been some things going on in the news of late, guys,
Yes.
that I got to get a better understanding of. Number one, we know that last week, I believe last Thursday, last Wednesday night,
Yes.
at what, 4:30 in the morning?
Mhm.
At 4:30 in the morning, the school vouchers passed.
Mhm.
And Rebecca and I looked at each other and said, I mean, we texted each other and said, what were they thinking? And that's why we entitled this show, What Were They Thinking? And what we want to do is bring someone in here who may be able to give us a different outlook or perspective on something that we just may not have all the information on, or we may need to be able to understand it in a different way.
Sure.
With that being said, John, what were they thinking
Okay.
with the school vouchers?
Okay.
And how are they going to get the money for it if it's not coming from our taxes?
Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on again.
You are
I'm
welcome.
really glad being here. Okay, so let's get a few things out the way.
Mm-hmm,
Number one, it was going to pass.
mm-hmm.
It was going to pass. Honestly, we thought it was going to pass last session.
Okay.
The concern that, well, I guess my personal concern we had was that the speaker, GOP caucus selected David Cook from Mansfield,
Mm-hmm.
to be the speaker.
Okay.
That's
But-
Mansfield, Texas, right?
Yes, correct, yes. He was supposed to be, I guess, our speaker. That's what we wanted. But when it came down to the speaker, Burrows was chosen instead.
Okay.
And we're all like, okay.
How that happened? Yeah.
Exactly. So it turns out basically some deals were cut. People want to keep their seats, et cetera, et cetera. Dems bonded together, kind of pushed that vote through. Some of
Okay.
our people. And the funny thing is, we were actually up there. Actually, I didn't make it, but one of the state reps who actually voted
Mm-hmm.
for Burrows was trying to hide in her office. I'm not making this up. She was hide behind a pole, something like that. So so that we couldn't see her.
Okay.
And and it's like a lot of people were also threatened with like, okay, you know what? If you do this, we're gonna fund this thing here. We might fund an opponent against you, that kind of stuff. So one thing about legislature, follow the money.
Oh yeah.
People
right.
vote for things. I mean, because it could be for this, or it could be vote maybe a certain way. Because if you don't vote a certain kind of way, guess what? You might get primary. People might come after you. That happens.
Yeah.
Right.
So now,
Okay.
that's what that thing comes. In terms of what they were thinking. Now, in terms of some of the people who are upset about this, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think about when I used to listen. Well, actually, No Limits, one of my favorite record labels in college. Girl went to school in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite songs they did, because you ain't got a lot to kick it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I mean by this, right? So, a few things. I did them 3, 2, 1. The third thing that I want to say, one of the biggest proponents of this, I guess one of the state reps who was the loudest
Okay. Yes.
about this,
Yes.
none of his kids go to public school. So, and see, this is why this matters to me, though. No, here's
Okay.
why.
Okay. Go ahead.
Here's why this matters to me.
Because I want to defend him.
Because, no,
I'm
because
going to defend him.
here's why I say this, right?
Yes.
Because it's so great that your kids don't go to it. Now, what's wrong with giving a parent that same potential opportunity that you may have
Because he can
Okay.
to
afford it.
go there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on.
He can afford it, yes. Sometimes he can afford a good education, right? So how come an everyday person can't afford one too?
Hold on a minute. Okay, I gotta jump in here. Y'all. Now, I share some commonalities with this particular person
Sure.
because he was a middle school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
public school teacher, middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Although, and his kids go to private school. I went to private school,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a public school, middle school teacher. All of my teaching experience has been in Title I public schools
Right.
in the Houston area.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have anything to do with, I'm going to tell you why I went to private school.
Sure.
Well, my mother chose
Sure.
it because I, at one point, was a deficit in math and I needed the extra help. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can't relate to that,
Sure.
but I was,
Oh, I
really,
can.
I was really,
Math was my best subject. So
I figured it was because he's a chemist,
And
but I know,
my mom didn't let me struggle.
but that was the
And
thing.
they had the money to afford for me to go to private
My
school.
mother said I can't let her fail because that was back in the day when if you fail something like math, you just didn't pass to the next grade,
Correct.
you know?
Mhm.
And that's when I enrolled in private school and I stayed there because I was doing better
Mhm.
in private school. My grades were better. The classes were smaller. I was able to get one-on-one attention and even tutoring if I needed it.
Sure.
But when I decided to teach, and I've got to be honest, I fell into teaching.
Mhm.
I didn't study to be a teacher.
Me neither.
I felt okay. Well, all of us are from that same a situation, but I didn't study to be a teacher. And when I came into teaching, my experience just happened to be of subbing in a public school.
Mhm.
It was a school that was not a Title I school at first because it was in the Pearland area.
Right.
No Title I's out there.
Right.
But when I decided to go ahead and pursue teaching and to get my alternative certification in teaching, I went through Houston Independent School District. But prior to that,
Mhm.
I taught in a couple of charter schools.
Okay.
And this was back when charter schools
Mhm.
were the schools that it's different now.
Sure.
But operated like private
There
before.
you are.
No,
Correct.
but hang on a second. Back then, when charters first came out, y'all,
Mhm.
charters were the catch-all for the kids who've been thrown out of public school.
Yes.
Do you may not remember that, but
Actually,
that's
I
what.
do. I do remember,
Yes,
yes.
they were the schools that.
Not the charters I was used to. The charters.
Oh,
I
see,
was
well, see,
used
I'm
to.
I'm a lot your senior.
Some
Yeah.
charters
when
also
those-
they kept these kids because a lot of these charter schools they got to have certain stutter. Their enrollment has to be a certain level too because like
Yeah.
In order to
it
get
might
the money
have
from the
you
state.
might want to say it, so-
Right.
and so you have kids and whatnot who are like being kicked out of the school, stuff like that.
And they gotta go somewhere.
They gotta go
They gotta go somewhere, stuff like that too. And see that brings up the other thing that you mentioned just now is okay, the deficit, right?
Yeah.
Deficit coming up.
Yeah.
Now, the previous show I was on, I talked about, for me, wishing that I would have had a choice to go somewhere because I was bullied, stuff like that.
Right.
And of course, I was able to move.
Yeah.
I had that option or that chance to
Your
move.
parents,
My parents,
were
that's
able.
right.
Yes.
Right. Just like how you had
Yeah.
the chance to go somewhere to help with your math.
But then
What's
again,
to stop
you-
with
Okay,
the parent
so
did the same thing.
let me
Jump in.
let me
Okay,
jump
go
in
ahead.
with that.
Go ahead.
You fund the public schools. I am 41 years old.
Mhm.
And since I've been in public school as a student and now as an educator, every single year,
Mhm.
the state has cut the budget for education. Every single year.
And that's since for the last 30 years, and who has been in charge of that school funding for 30 years? You can say it.
Hold on.
Okay.
I got some.
So, okay. So this is what I'm saying.
I got some.
So my thing is this.
Okay.
My whole thing is this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't knock parents who want to send their children to private school. You got the money. If you got $45,000 a year to send your baby to a private school,
Well, it wasn't that back then. Yeah.
have at it.
Mhm.
But what I am saying is that every child cannot afford that.
Right.
Private schools don't have to abide by the same rules as public schools.
Okay.
So, with all of that being said, if we just fund the public schools like the public schools are supposed to be funded, let me finish.
I got you.
Like the public schools are supposed to be funded,
Right.
then
That
It would
a
be
need.
it would be a viable option for everybody. That's been my point. Our governor,
What about it? What about it?
Breathe. Breathe.
ooh, 26 can't come fast enough.
Okay.
Our governor. I'm sorry, y'all.
You got reelected in a landslide. Go ahead.
My point is this: our governor went around and talked about, oh, how bad the public schools are, how they're failing, how they're doing this, and how they're doing that. Sir, your party has been in charge of public schools since 1992.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Curriculum, your party. The budget, your party.
Discipline.
Your party.
Okay.
So since it's a failure, doesn't that means that
Finger points back here.
Hold on.
you got one finger for 1 point, you got one finger pointing, but 3 point back at you. So if public education has been a failure,
Who do you have to look at?
sir,
Counterpoint.
Okay. There's a saying, all politics is local, right?
Yeah.
Which means our school boards also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we just saw a gentleman who got indicted, should be going to jail.
Two gentlemen.
Two gentlemen from one district in particular,
Mm-hmm.
money, parking lot deals, strip club deals, and stuff like that. And of course, one thing that was also mentioned as well, failing schools, right? Now, there are grants for failing schools that take place. We all know that. Failing schools are also good for business. Let me tell you why they're good for business.
I agree with that.
That's
No, no,
that's
I
true.
definitely-
That's true. That's true.
I do agree with that.
I'm gonna say this right because some of these people, let's just say some of these districts
Mm-hmm.
or parts of the city, state, whatever, that are failing schools, they're getting grant monies to fix these schools. There's something in grants called administrative fees.
Right.
So how many
Absolutely.
people from from these districts who are getting these grants for these schools and that are failing, they get a grant for this school, grant for this school, grant for this school, grant for that school,
Mm-hmm.
and the schools are still failing. They're getting their monies and they're taking their little cut from those administrative fees that are supposed to go to these schools. This is the thing we don't talk about.
Well, John, here's the thing. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. However, when we have to look at the public school system
Mhm.
in Texas as a whole.
Mhm.
If you pull out money from the general kitty
Mhm.
and give a grant here, and then pull out money from a general kitty and give the grant here, instead of looking at it holistically and saying, okay, across the board,
Mhm.
well, there are issues in discipline at let's say 80% of these public
I'm
schools.
glad you brought that back.
Hang on. In discipline, across the board, these students are not being able to meet the standards because of truancy.
Mhm.
Okay, across the board, they're not being able to meet the standards because of math scores or reading scores or the inability to be on level as far as these reading
Mhm.
scores. Okay, instead of giving all of these solitary grants,
Mhm.
if we put that money together and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to not necessarily blue bonnet,
Mhm.
but we're going to get together and we're going to roll out a curriculum that we know is going to address those particular issues. Then, and that's going to happen across the board, instead of taking a little bit of money or a whole lot of money here and giving it to this one that's doing this and this one and this one and that one. And first of all, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spray you, but first of all,
It's your passion.
that's right. But that's the kind of thing that is immediately going to raise eyebrows.
But here's the thing about this, though, right? For that to happen, and of
Mhm.
course, in theory, that's not a bad idea.
Because we've got the funding for it. Am I right? In the rainy day
Yes.
fund.
Here's where it
We don't know
gets.
where their day fund money is gonna go, because they not
Maybe charter schools. I mean, maybe
Well,
vouchers.
And we're all, nothing has been outlined, and that's my issue too. I'm gonna have you speak to that a little bit
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, and that's on our
Because-
list. John
yeah,
was going to
because-
speak to that.
We don't even have let me let you finish because I was
Yeah.
I think the other thing about this too is that, I guess, I'll give you like the blue bond thing stuff. I think you just mentioned just now. In theory, that sounds like a good idea. Here's where it gets interesting.
Mhm.
That might require people to vote against their self-interests. Here's what I mean by that. If you have individuals who've been getting paid from the TDA for these individual grants for this school here, this school here, this school here, this school here, are they going to vote for something that they know deep down could be better, but could alienate a few campaign contributors? People give money to their PACs to get their reelection.
Damn, that's a good point.
Mhm.
See, that's the point.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I didn't think about it from that angle.
That's all right. See,
I'm sorry. That was brilliant.
and see,
That was brilliant.
and see,
I got to do that with my students.
it goes across partisan lines. It does.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
because it's
right.
like, you want to do this, but are people willing? And so one thing talk about also on local too. Let's talk about school boards for a second as well.
Yeah.
You keep voting for the same people over and over and over and
Okay.
over again, and then you wonder why stuff goes south.
So
And I
what
don't
we're
gotta have
saying-
that talk.
So what we're
And I
saying-
also agree with that.
Yeah.
Because that's a conversation people do not want to have. And that's another
We
reason
have to
why.
have that one first.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
For
Right.
anything else.
And that's where I've been getting my head bit off at by
And that's-
politicians that I know personally,
Mhm.
because and I keep saying y'all, I promise you it's not personal. I love y'all. It is not personal.
But you never take everything personal.
But
You know that.
but we have to be real about where we are. If there is not, now I do realize and I understand it's not enough of us right now to make the difference.
I think it
Yes,
is.
there are.
I think it
Yes, there
is.
are.
But I think that we need to be a lot more vocal and stop bridling our mouths.
They take everything so personal too. Stop doing
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it
Yeah.
doesn't. Let's be clear.
Mhm.
Regardless of how old you are as a legislator,
Mhm.
regardless of how old you are, you have got to step back and say, and sometimes examine yourself.
Mhm.
Do I need to be more forward thinking? If in being more forward thinking and helping move an entire entity to another level means that I may get voted out, then maybe that means that God has something else and it's his plans for you at that
People
You
time.
know what?
There's not power.
But I have to give it to Dick Durbin, even though he's a
Yeah,
representative
yes,
out
yes.
of Chicago. I have to
Say
give it
yes.
to the Democratic statesman.
He
He's
stepped
retiring,
aside.
I agree
He
with that.
stepped aside.
I
and
agree.
he is retiring
Yeah.
because he said, in a sense, the way he's done politics for 40 years,
It's
Mhm.
changing.
it's no longer
That's right.
effective.
It's no longer valid.
No, he said
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah.
That was his exact word.
Yeah.
He's right.
And he said that, he, came to grips with what he did with his party with the reconciliation.
Yeah.
And he said that now he realized he made a mistake.
Yeah.
But he was going off the fact that
This is the way we've done it.
This is the way we've done it. And now he's like,
Yeah.
I see this is not the venue. And
And
now
it's not the direction we're moving in.
right.
That's right.
And now he's saying, I'm 80 years old.
Yeah.
It's time for me to go.
You
That's
like-
And I can
That's
right, and he alluded to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, you have people that are stroking out. I know he was talking about Mitch McConnell,
Yeah.
but he's telling me you have people that are stroking out
Mhm.
and literally being rolled out of their offices and dying in the hospital.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he said, while I still have all my senses in faculty,
That's
and I
right.
can walk out of the back door the way I came in, it's time for me to go.
And help
Home state.
because you do have wisdom that has come from your years. Help groom that next generation and let them put their spin and their ideas and their thoughts and ideologies, that are embracing what is new.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there's not a place for you, but maybe your place is in that of a support
And
position.
that's to say
Yeah.
that, octogenarians can't be effective because you
Yeah.
have some that are still very much
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah.
But you have but I appreciated him for that. But I lost my train of thought. So But yeah, I appreciated him for saying, for coming out and saying that he even made a mistake, right? He
Yeah.
shouldn't have voted for the reconciliation
Right.
bill. He shouldn't have went against this, but like he said, they're used to backroom dealing and they're used
But when
to
you're but when you are dealing with the type of administration and the things that may be going on that are so far removed from what we have been accustomed to,
yeah.
you have to start looking at things in a different way.
Well, here's the thing about that. Fish mentioned that. One thing about, and by the way, I did catch part of what Dick Durkin had to say.
Mhm.
Very spot on.
Yeah.
And it's not because, like, he's in terms of part, not something about that. I mean, it's like, here's someone who realizes that, he's done this way for a long time. Move out the way.
He's made
Nothing wrong with his contribution.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when this nation was first started, career politicians were not, I mean,
Didn't
our
exist. Yeah.
government was not designed for a career politician.
No,
That's right.
They worked, they went up, they went up to cap, they served their penance, and then they went home.
That's right.
But now you have people who it's now very, what's the word I'm looking for, profitable.
Yeah.
Even though they make a certain salary.
And power.
And powerful too.
Powerful.
And so one thing
Because when I
so,
looked into when you was running,
Mhm.
and I looked into all of the perks,
mhm.
I was like, oh, no
It's-
wonder why these people don't leave.
It's very, very addictive. Power shows you who you are. Because now I've been a candidate, you've been a candidate as well. The one thing that we see is that people do not want to step aside because people may think it is like, and it's weird. People think they've run against them, they think you're personally attacked.
Yeah, and that's not the case. No.
This is politics. It's okay with having a different set of ideas and whatnot, but the one thing that happens is that we, in general,
Mhm.
whenever someone comes along, it's a problem for them.
Yeah.
The old guard wants to protect the old guard, and then the people who've been voting for them for so long are used to voting for these same people,
Yeah.
and then, when people say, okay, which was there's a second point I want to make about this too. People say, let the people decide. The people did decide. That's why you have state reps and state senators.
Yeah.
That's what you have. That's why they vote to represent you. And the funny thing, this always comes up, and maybe I'm being unfair when I say this.
You being unfair, John? No,
Okay.
I'm teasing. Go ahead.
This is something that goes, I guess this goes everywhere. I'm not going to say this one side out. Every side does this. Why do we only say we want the people to decide something with something that you don't like?
Well, let me ask you this. What types of things should there be a referendum on? And what types of things
If
should
you
be
would
left
ask
to?
me, I
Yeah.
feel like the voters should vote on everything. There should not be.
Okay, then if that's
So
the
why have state reps and state senators then? Why have them? Because they're supposed to represent us, right? That there are hundreds of bills that go through Austin
Yeah.
every session.
Yeah.
I went to Austin, you went to Austin, I'm sure you went there.
Yeah.
No, I was awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't understand things like, okay, so these people are going through bills
Mhm.
like a lot.
Yeah.
If the people, if it's let the people decide what's be for every single bill, that was be about 50, 100 pages long, trying to read through all these bills and stuff.
Yeah,
That's why they actually have the representatives go up there and vote and stuff. Now that also falls on the people who voted for them to say, hey,
You're not voting by
Right.
best interest. Yeah.
why am I seeing 2 or 3 bills you've written talking about this thing right here?
Mhm.
Why are we talking about this? Like you're getting upset
Well, it
about.
requires people to have some political intelligence.
And to have some accountability and to do your due diligence. Yeah.
But see, here's the thing, and I don't think it's been explained enough because I even saw this when you were running. I saw this firsthand when you were running for office. It's a disconnect, right? I think people vote for the same people over and over again, and this is just my psychological theory that because it's like, okay, well, I know the person,
Mhm.
right? A lot of people are not politically
We do that
astute.
too, to a certain time.
You're right. A lot of us are not, and when I say a lot of us, I'm talking about both sides of the aisle. A lot of us are not politically astute
Yeah.
enough to say, okay, wait, hold up,
Mhm.
one of my concerns were with the mayor of Houston, why I didn't vote for him because for mayor, it was because, you didn't show up for 50% of the votes. I went back and looked at it.
Right.
You didn't show up for 50%, 60, 75%.
As a state senator?
as
Yeah.
a state senator.
Yeah.
And then the things that were important to me and my family and my community, it was what's the one? Prison. Prison.
Right.
What?
Yes.
So why would I give you power over a city and you can't even handle your constituents? And he's a part of my party.
Sure.
You can't even be present to vote for things that's important to your constituents. So why would I think that you would ever be concerned?
Well, your party's mad at him right now. So let's let the competition.
No,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
They're mad at him right now.
no, but that was
I'm messing with you.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that was my issue.
Sure.
Yeah.
And people were very confused
Here's
when I was in that neighborhood because I was at a meeting
Uh-huh.
and they were supporting him, and I was like, no, I don't think I can support him. And then when I explained that to them, they were like, wait, what?
But here's the thing. Here, let's be clear. When you
let's talk about that too. But go ahead.
yeah, when you have to look at the two candidates that were left to run.
Mhm.
A lot of people had issues with the other candidate too, for some of the same reasons. Okay, a lot of them did.
But
Yeah.
Crystal, you've been in office as a state senator
Yeah,
for 50 something years,
yeah,
and you have not been present,
Watch this.
especially for issues that matter. You won't take a stand?
Watch this.
Like,
no,
that's
I
just
agree with you. I mean,
that
I
just
understand
blew
what you're
me.
saying.
Here's the.
But here's the thing. I went back, but my whole point of that is I'm okay with him now.
Sure.
But my whole point of that is how many people are going to take the time to go? Because you can tell me you can run all
Only
day.
you. Nobody else is gonna take the time. People don't. You know that
They
people
don't.
don't. That's exactly. I know
They don't.
exactly what you're getting ready to say,
Right.
and that's how people can stay in there for all that time. They begin to know a name.
Mhm.
They can't even tell you how somebody is voted. All they can do is I saw them at my church, or I saw them at this
But
picnic,
then I'm
or
like,
I saw them at this little league game. That's all that
and
they
I
know.
was side-eyed in his own constituents.
Yeah.
Like, how are y'all? This man don't even show up for votes
The
that
name
matter.
Whitmire has been synonymous with Houston for decades. But so here's something else also.
That's
because
right.
He didn't even
It's
vote.
the name. It's the
He
name.
didn't even vote for when the floods happened
Here's
and they were voting on. He wasn't even present.
here's
Oh,
here's the issue though, and see this is where things kind of got a little tricky about it because like that was actually my cycle. Well,
Mhm.
it's like I was on that cycle, right? I went to some of those debates and stuff like that. The one thing I saw, because I know she's not here with us, I'm not trying to
Mhm.
get a pocket. The one thing that people kept talking about, they kept talking about let's make history. People kept talking about let's get a black woman in there to be mayor. She didn't talk about flooding.
Yeah.
She didn't talk about drainage. She didn't talk about those local issues. Everything was all about what she did in DC. Now we all know that national government and local government are two different things.
Yeah, they are.
What people are ran into, it was all about trying to.
but he was in the state government and wasn't doing anything for his own constituents in the city of Houston.
But here's the thing, right? If they would have brought that up, then that's one thing. Here's the thing, though, they never did. It never came up. I'm telling you, if it did, it was like maybe like a snitching herself. Everything's just like, hey, she's been in DC for so long. Let's get her here to be mayor.
But here's the
It
thing.
didn't come up. I'm
But
telling you, it didn't come up.
Yeah, I know, but his constituents should have brought that up.
well, and he could. But people could say the same thing about her constituents. Should have brought that up. You know, this up. And the thing about it is, you had two career Democrats
Mm-hmm.
who are on the ticket. They have accolades for different reasons, with different parts of the city, yeah, of the city. And you know, the voters decided.
Mhm.
The voters decided.
But that's
But-
my point, though. That
Yeah.
goes back to what we're saying. We
Yeah.
don't have enough people who are politically astute to go back, look at records, look at voting records. Let me see.
That's why.
what you're
That's why
saying.
it's up to platforms like ours
Yes.
right here.
And that's the point I'm making.
Just that.
When you're a politician, and I don't know if they ever thought about this.
Mhm.
Any of them? I think some of them have, because some of them are starting to do it, and I'm starting to see it.
Uh-huh.
What I think they all need to do, is the town halls. And when I
Yes,
say
they do.
that, and not just do it before election when a big they need
all
to
the time,
do
all year long.
they need to do town halls with their constituents. Now I get it, a lot of constituents ain't gonna show up because, like I said,
But Rebecca,
but you need to at least have them to
They
let
don't-
people know what's going
but
on.
Rebecca, you don't even have to, in this day and time, you don't even have to do a town hall.
Yeah.
Look at what we're doing right now, and look at how many
Podcast.
people we reach every week.
How many are watching right now? I'm curious. How many are watching right
We get most of ours.
The
within
data
a week.
out.
Yeah, and sometimes we get to. Sometimes it's been 5, almost 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for watching this.
I know.
Thank you.
I know.
But here's the thing: there are so many different types of free platforms that you can do right now to get to your constituents. We could set this up so that literally people are making comments the whole time, and we can address people real time.
Now, here's something about what you said, Rebecca. Now, actually, I agree with you about that. Because people are politically astute. Here's the thing that comes with that, and it's not a but; it's an and.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I mean by that, right? So you're following along with them. You're seeing what they're doing. People are politically astute. They are.
Yeah.
It's what people choose to spend their time on.
Right.
You can do that. But what happens when you say, look at your phone, they say, ooh, this person did this. Ooh, this person did this.
Right.
That person who I've been supporting, who I called my friend,
Mhm.
my friend, brother, go to the same church, whatever.
Yeah.
You've been involved with that person for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Are people willing to look in the mirror and say, man, I should not have voted for him or her all that time?
No.
Are people willing to have that kind of self-reflection and say, you know what, maybe I should vote for somebody else?
I
Because
think
people don't like being challenged either.
But you know what? Here's the thing about it. I think that people can, and I think in this day and time, people will. And let me tell you why. Only because of the way that people uh, on both sides of the aisle,
Sure.
just of late, within the last 6 months,
Mhm.
have been bitten in the behind by people that they have hung their hat on. And from the national level all the way down, how they feel that people have turned their backs on them and hit them in the gut.
Chris, what was the first thing I
Yeah.
said, right? On your show, I first came on your show a couple years ago.
Mhm.
The first thing I talked about was people looking to see what their state reps and state senators, what their bills are on.
Yeah,
That hasn't changed.
yeah.
That hasn't changed. It's the same thing.
But you know what, John? Like we said, the last time that all three of us were sitting around here too, I think Raquel was here.
Sure.
Here's the thing. It hasn't changed, but John, I can see the tide turning now, simply because so many people have had their behind handed to them in the last 6 months that they're saying,
Now
wait a
people are
minute,
personally
it's
affected.
it's being personally.
My 401k is being drained.
Yeah.
My 403b is being
Yeah,
drained.
absolutely.
Grocery prices in the store are not going down. I'm paying $9-10 for eggs.
Yeah.
I'm paying $5 for gas. I might not have a job when I go back to work on Monday.
And you can't order from Temu and get free shipping.
Right.
I'll tell you
I can't order food. And I'm a sheet girl. Matter of fact, this dress that I have on now.
I love them both.
Very nice.
So it's just like, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So now it's taking people being personally
Yes.
affected for them to see, wait a minute, this
Something's
is
not right. Yeah.
Something is not right.
Well, actually, I will say this also, but from what I've run into,
Mhm.
and of course I've gone out to community stuff, well, talking to different people too. I'm seeing a lot more people being more friendly to me. Here's why I'm saying that. Here's what's more friendly to me.
Mhm.
Because it's like, man, you've been told that we've been voting for these people for so long. And our votes for no matter who's been the president, who's the president been, well, one side, the other side, whatever. They've been voting for these people for so long. I'm for this person for so long or whatnot. And what am I getting out of it? So it's like, okay, you know what? Let me give this guy. Because one thing that
Let me give him a chance. Yeah.
community's about, because as I said beforehand, when I was running for office the first time, I've heard people say, John, I like Republicans, but I like you.
Mhm.
I may not like what's happening with whatever Governor Abbott's doing or whatever.
Mhm.
I said, but John, I'll mess with you.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, John, what are you about?
Yeah.
What are you speaking about? So guess what? Now I'm getting a lot more positive responses.
And you're getting people to be able to listen
Well,
to
listen more.
what your message.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's some people kind of taking the emotions out. But then another thing, I guess, about the Dodgers thing for a second. I think the one thing that's going to happen is that it's going to make people have to compete again.
And they should. People should have
But
to
no,
compete.
no, I don't accept that premise. I don't.
No,
And let me tell you why I don't accept that
compete.
premise.
Well, let him clarify that.
No.
Compete in what
Here's why-
manner?
Here's what I'm saying, Laura, because we've talked about some of these different schools and school districts.
Yes.
They've operated without, I guess, like impunity for so long.
Yeah.
Whatever it is they want to do, whether it's like the big time schools or the small
With,
schools.
with very little oversight.
It's like very
Yeah.
little oversight. So now, and so as you get a little bit about this, I'm not getting this and whatnot. That's what's happening is that now, really for the first time ever,
Mm-hmm.
when like when the takeover happened,
Mm-hmm.
I said, guys, this is just the beginning. They're not going to stop here.
I will not
People
do they
would
were
have
gonna stop
thought
there.
people would have got the memo then.
Yeah, because they
But
get
all of
ready.
this was coming down the pipe.
No, they getting ready to take over. State getting ready to take over Fort Worth ISD.
Mm-hmm.
Starting June. June 25.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, though. But if you see these things coming, and if you keep having the same practices, and keep on the same people in these school boards or whatever, over and over and
Yeah.
over and over and over
And nothing's changed.
nothing's changing. Someone is going to force it because we talked about the discipline thing for a second. So
Yeah.
schools and whatnot, right? So when I was in Austin, one of the state reps who I spoke to, he was one of the authors on the discipline bills. And so I asked him what was motivation behind it. He said, John, we shouldn't be talking about things like this.
Mm-hmm.
But he said a lot of the people have been reaching out to us saying that this is out of control, kids do what they want to do, nothing happens to them, etc.
Yeah.
So now you're forcing them to get involved. See, it's just like when it's like, okay, we don't take care of business, I guess, like inside your house, you're going to have to call someone to get them to fix it.
Yeah.
They're basically calling people to get them involved. It's like, okay, now I'm going to start asking questions. So these are questions, I guess, whether it's like in the schools or the church, for example,
Mhm.
people acting a fool they've never had to
Answered it.
answer to them before. Now they're being forced to answer.
And you know what? I'm gonna say
Okay,
this.
and I agree with that
I'm
point.
gonna say this. I'm gonna say this.
I agree. With
I
that point.
agree with this.
Mhm.
I like order.
I do too.
I like order.
And don't
And-
matter to me, I can function either way. That's
Oh no, I can't. I
That's
don't like
just
to
right.
function in chaos. I don't because I think
Which
it's
drives me
much
nuts.
more. It's much more difficult to get things done.
Correct.
I like
for some
order,
people. Everybody's not the same.
but you know what? I've seen just from the outside looking in. People can get things done, but it's much more difficult to get things done in chaos, okay, than it is in an orderly manner. It takes less time. It's efficiency. There's efficiency in a
But
way.
everybody's not the same.
Understand the questions though too, that there are things that they try to get things done when they get
Mhm.
catch you up. It's like, okay, why do I have to deal with this and this and this and this? And
And the reason I say that because I'm a strategist.
Sure.
I'm a strategist. That's what I
As
do.
am I.
I'm very strategic.
So am I.
So you can bring a bunch of chaos to me, and I'm gonna make it make sense.
But are they bringing the cash to you because it's the cash, or are they bringing it because they're afraid of their pockets or their influence dimming?
I'm gonna make it make sense. That's just who I am. That's what I'm saying. Everybody is not,
Yeah.
and I get it. I'm a special kind of
I see where you're
individual.
coming from, because once again, though, when you deal with people, once again, people are getting challenged for the first time now. These people who've been in these seats, who've been in this power forever, and they think now it's like, ooh, I can't do this no more.
I'm gonna tell you. Let me say this, John and Rebecca, and then we got to get to our last point. We got to. As far as what was happening in our largest school district in Texas for the last 20 years, okay?
Ran into the ground.
For the last 20 years, we've seen the exact same thing going around in a circle over and over and over again, and nothing was changing. It was a while before our hand was even slapped.
Mhm.
Okay, it was observed for a while.
Mhm.
Once that hand was slapped and saying, if y'all can't get it together, then we'll come get it together.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was taken seriously enough,
It wasn't.
because at that point we needed to step back. I don't think that we thought that would actually happen.
Mhm.
But at that point, we needed to, and I am a proponent. I'm a proponent for elected bodies
Mhm.
running their own districts. But I think that the first thing we need to do is make sure that we got people that are 100% accountable on those
And
on
here's
those
my
elected
point.
bodies.
Here's my point with
Yeah.
that, and then I'm gonna make my other point because I haven't
Mhm.
made it yet.
Mhm.
You're not in compliance, CEO. Oops.
But I may not.
This-
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
the DOJ before this, I'm sorry, the DOE, Department of Education,
Yeah.
said, CEA, you're not compliant.
Yes.
And you have not been
Mhm.
for the last 15 years.
Okay. But where does the buck
So,
stop?
so that's when but here's my point.
Mhm.
You can't tell me, oh, you got to get it together, and we answer to the head, and the head ain't in compliance.
But you
in
know
doing
what? It
they
depends on
supposed to
who's
do.
holding the power.
Thank you.
If the head is holding the power
Thank
and
you.
it is an inequitable thing there.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not saying it's right.
No.
I'm not saying it's
No,
right.
no.
But it's true.
No.
Yeah, it's
no.
true.
No. If I am a landlord
Mm-hmm.
and all these apartment buildings are broken and all this other stuff, and I'm saying, yeah, I'm gonna fix it, I'm gonna fix it, I'm gonna fix it. And then the top people that's over me saying, wait a minute, but yours ain't together.
So TA told them that those people.
So if the Department of Education is not holding TEA's finger to the fire,
But my point is, well, that was in the process of happening.
for how long?
No, because
Okay.
I've done the research, so I'm not
That's
bringing nothing.
But for how long?
This was coming down the pipe soon.
Okay,
before,
but see, the thing about it is,
before
you
administration. But
have
my
to look at
point
it and
is-
say for 20 years.
no,
if
it's
they
not.
hadn't-
No, I said within
Some
the
people
last.
who were superintendents are dead now.
No, but
Who
I
were
was just saying.
Different,
superintendents.
different offices. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
school on the school board to the ground
But-
out there. These.
But I'm saying, that's my whole point.
And I'm just
That's-
playing, I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
No,
I
I
get
get
what
it.
you're saying.
I get it.
I get what you're saying.
Because
Yeah.
everybody's talking about all of this sped compliance, but when I went and did the research, I said, hold up, CEA ain't even in compliance with sped.
But the thing about it is, it's fine to go like this and this and this.
But you can't
But-
tell me what to
But
do.
the
But yes, you can.
tell
If
No,
they
you
have-
can't.
the
If
parking lot, they tell them to give the money to the parking lot. What the TA say? No, you're going to give this money to this person's parking lot. TA did that? No. That's-
But my
That's
whole
twisted.
point, no, my
I
whole
think that
point-
in a utopian world, this makes perfect sense. In a utopian world, but the world that we live in is that there was nobody holding TEA to the fire, but they were allowed. I mean, their feet to the fire, but they're allowed to hold other people's feet to
and
the
that's
fire.
what I'm saying.
But
But that's what
that's a
we.
fact.
But that's what I'm saying. We're having a supply chain breakdown. This,
Yeah.
we're having a supply chain breakdown from the top, and that's my whole point. We can sit here and say, "Well, no, that's them. They're in charge. Even if they're broken,
And
that's fine.
it's
It doesn't
utopian.
matter."
It's
But that's what I'm saying.
utopian. Yeah,
No, it does
is.
not. We have a supply chain breakdown, and because we have a supply chain breakdown,
Uh-huh.
it has affected other districts within the state of Texas.
Yeah.
This is why so many school districts have sued TEA. Let's be clear.
But
So
the thing
here's
about
my
it is,
thing.
and nothing continues to happen to TEA.
Right.
And this is what I'm saying. I 100% agree with you. In a perfect world, everything you're saying would be absolutely, completely on point, and it would be adhered to. But it hasn't been. If TEA has been given the autonomy and authority to mandate these things on these school districts, but hold on, but nobody is coming back and saying, you know what, before you do that to them, you better get this in order and you better get this in order. You can tell me for the next 30 years that it was coming 5 years from now. Well, it's coming in a minute, and it's 50 years down the road.
Okay,
And nobody is
so
holding TEA to
And
the
you
fire.
know what? And who needs to do that? The voters, because it's
Yeah,
time to get
yeah.
new leadership.
That's right.
So that's what I'm
right.
saying. So
Go
they-
across the board.
This,
Yeah.
but that's my.
Across the board, you're
Across the
right.
board.
That's what's
From here
because if
to
we,
the school
that's what I'm
board
saying.
to-
The voters
Yeah.
need to vote all of these people out.
Yep.
At this point,
Yep.
because the whole education
From the-
system, from the top, the very
Rebecca,
top
here you go.
to the bottom,
I'll give you that.
is broken.
I'll give you
It's
that.
You're giving them.
And that's the point that I feel like people are missing. That's the point that people are missing. It's broken
But people need to own their roles in that.
everywhere. And I agree. But getting back to what the
Sorry.
point that
Yes, yes.
That I was
Yes.
also-
Yes.
the point that I was going to make
Uh-huh.
with that. This is where I feel like parents need to get involved.
Mhm.
One thing I can say about the largest school district in the state of Texas, it is very segregated. And that's why I said it's not fair to say the competition. That's going back to what I was saying. Because every school is not equal
Equitable,
to the
yeah.
equitable to the other. You have one side of the school district who parents are very involved.
Yes.
They are having meetings with
Mhm.
principals.
Mhm.
They're going to Congress. They're calling their
How do you
congressmen.
correct that? You
Wait,
100% right.
wait a minute.
That's a hard one. Yeah,
They're going to their congressmen.
that's right.
They're holding their congressmen
Accountable. That's right.
They're holding principals to accountable. They're
That's right.
holding school board. They're at the school board. But then you have a whole nother side
I know.
Here's
that is
You can't drag them. You can't drag them into yeah.
apathetic.
Yeah.
So here's is why I said with the competition part.
Mhm.
With one segment of society, we talking about immigrants. We talking about people that are holding down 3 and 4 and 5 jobs just to put food on the table.
Right.
You talking about a subset of people who are really struggling to make. These people need assistance to pay their daily bills. They have to go through services just to pay their daily bills.
Right.
So when we're talking about competition, that still is not the answer because you still have a whole subset of a district. It won't ever be fair for you.
Here's the thing about that though, and see where you're coming from with that. Here's the thing about this though, right? Talking about when do we get involved? The involvement has to be there, not just because someone's coming to get you, because running joke that goes on and whatnot, right? You can't. I mean, parents going to show up to their kids' football game or their basketball game,
They're not even doing that anymore.
and that's sad.
They're not even doing that anymore.
You know, it's like it's like the people don't show up like that. I guess like they'll come to the basketball game, they'll come the Easter eggs, come basketball game, but then open house, they change their phone number when they want to call what's happening. But then
Or when a teacher wants to call to get
a teacher will call them to see what's going on and whatnot. I do think that there's a lot of this, I believe, is people, and I'm trying to see how this is going to sound. I think people think that if you call them about their kid, you're basically calling them a failure.
Yeah,
That's what it
yeah,
is.
that's true.
That's exactly what it is.
That's true.
And, you know, I'm sorry, because once again, this is where it comes in. I mean, it's like it's the greater good is making sure your kid is okay,
That's right.
and which also involves having a little bit like a different kind of emotional intelligence and maturity to say, you know what, it's about making sure my kid is all right. Whenever my kid my kid has some issues like with reading, gets in his school and whatnot. Guess what? I didn't say, "Oh my God, what's going on?" I didn't blame his mother.
Yeah.
No, no stuff. Hey, my kid has to get better with this. We
Yeah.
practice with reading, practice with this, we practice on those things. That's
Exactly.
what we do. Here's the thing, though. Exactly the thing, though, right? But the problem is that doesn't happen. That my personal opinion, I guess, we might not see it as much because people take it and it's like, oh, well, you don't think I'm doing a good job as a parent.
But where is that coming from? That's coming from guilt, though, right? Because, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm
Guilt in a sense of hopelessness.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because, and that's my point
Okay.
with the whole voucher situation. Because none of that I feel like has been spoken about, right? You have parents, whatever the schools say, that's pretty much what they go along with. Because
That's good either, though.
It's not. Yeah.
and this is why this is a problem.
Yeah.
Because, and this is why I have a problem with the competition thing. Because we've been in this thing for a long time with Title One. We've been in this thing for a very long time. With both demographics.
Right.
And we can say that's the utopia, right?
Yeah.
Going back to that, we can say that,
Mhm.
but like you said, they show up for basketball. No, they don't. They don't even show up for basketball and football games. They don't even show up for track meets. I have so many friends that coach, and they have to stay to school 8 and 9 and 10 o'clock
For the kids to get picked up.
for the kids to get picked up. And sometimes they have to risk their jobs because they got families of their own that they need to get home to. They have to risk their jobs to go drop children off, and not just drop them off, but drop them off and feed them.
Wow.
So that's what
another conversation we got.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We can sit here, we can talk about competition and what's better, but the point is there are some people that ain't gonna get out. They're just not. So what do you do? Do you turn your back and ignore them?
No.
So where's ownership come in?
And here,
Ownership has to come in somewhere.
but wait a minute, guys. Wait a minute. Here's what we gotta circle back around to. Let's circle back around to this.
Okay.
And this was Rebecca and my question. we are told. I don't think if taxpayer money is truly not going to be touched. I don't think anybody has an issue with it if we're not having to pay for it, or if money is not coming from us. They say that public schools are going to have 100% funding, right?
Mhm.
Where is that money coming from? We know that there are billionaire benefactors who have touted this. Yeah. Who have touted the vouchers. And if that's the case, why not be transparent with us and say, okay, in this infancy phase, we're going to have people who are privately underwriting this to see if it is going to be viable. Why not say that?
And that's I think that's where my confusion, and no politician has answered my question
Yeah.
on both sides of that.
Right.
So I don't even know if they know, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But here's my question. You say you got the money for the vouchers. You say you're gonna fully fund public school. You say you're not gonna touch taxpayers' dollars
Right.
and property taxes. Matter of fact, in legislation that just passed, I don't know if a lot of people know that for the seniors, they have completely cut property taxes for seniors.
It's on there.
Yeah, they passed that in legislation,
Okay.
and that's
Which
going
is
to
a good
add.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but schools still come from those
Yes,
property taxes.
that's right.
So
Where's the money coming from?
where's the money coming from? How is this gonna be funded? All you keep saying is we're not gonna touch public. We gonna fully fund public schools. We gonna fully fund vouchers, and we not. So where's the money coming from?
Well, like somebody put in the comments last week, maybe that's going to be coming from the new if they are able to vote in favor of this of these casinos. Maybe that's where it's coming from. Who knows?
Well, I know the lottery, a portion of the
And the
lottery,
lottery
goes to
yeah.
education, but I'm just.
Well, one thing I will say about this, I'm not a politician, so as I don't have those answers, maybe
Yeah.
otherwise I would probably be breaking news. I don't have answer that either. One thing I will say though was that, and this is not me dodging anything like that. In the meanwhile, when that stuff comes up, I guess like when we finally say about this, let's make sure that we as constituents have our ducks in a row.
I agree.
Comes
Yeah.
to say, okay, you know what, he's gonna want this, want to do this, want this, want this. Let's make sure that what we can do on our backs, because I mean, it's a power of the purse. We have that because we pay taxes here. That's it. But I will also say that we're gonna make sure, hey, you, school board member, you, state representative, you, state senator, what are you really, really doing here to make this work?
And with that in mind, and that's a good place to leave that thought, John. We got to tackle one more thing because we only got about 8 minutes,
Well,
10 maybe. But if we go a little bit longer, that's okay because we can. Okay, but this morning I heard on the news.
new to me because I haven't heard it yet. Okay.
Yes, you have. Oh, you've heard it. President Trump says that effective May the 1st, all student loans. There's not a moratorium or a freeze on repayment of student loans
Mhm.
because everyone should repay their debts. Woo! Whose mouth did that come from? A person who's filed bankruptcy. How many times? Everyone should repay
Yes, I
their
have.
debt.
I mean, you haven't told the whole story. That's
Okay, go
part of
ahead.
it.
Go ahead.
The other story is they are going to start garnishing wages. They are going to garnish wages. They're going to garnish tax returns. They are going to garnish not child support, wages. Anything, anywhere you have money.
Why do you think that would be? Why do you think that would
Well,
be?
he even said 401ks, but I don't think you can do that though. You can't garnish somebody's 401k.
Here's what I'll say about this. Like,
Yeah,
I'll
tell us.
the whole-
Tell us.
I think the first time hearing about this, I didn't hear.
Yes.
Well,
So,
can you garnish somebody's 401k?
I don't know. I'm
I
not,
I don't even want to speak to that. I don't know.
What he said it.
But
one thing I'll say, I guess, like, because I'm familiar, I guess, like with the whole, with the whole, with how I guess like student loan things, stuff like that.
mhm.
Honestly, I didn't even apply for that. Now, here's why: because I didn't know how it worked.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be easier for me just to go ahead and keep paying student loans. I
Yeah.
got no problem paying my student loans back because I'm okay with that. When that program was going on for so long, so I thought, okay, it's not gonna last forever.
No, it's not.
It's not gonna last forever. So so it's like I was already conditioning to that, guess I could pay back my student loans anyway. It's taking
Right.
me a while to do it, but
Right,
I'm
right.
getting them done.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like when people say, okay, so my firm's going to end, I think to myself, okay, I would pay my back regardless. And so,
But
my
here's
point-
my
my
thing
point-
is,
my
here's
point-
my thing is, you have people that are in medical school,
That's right.
you have people who are in law school,
yes.
who are have 50, 60, 70, 80,000, $100,000. Even Barack and Michelle
And,
Obama
and
said
many of them
when
are
they
serving.
graduated,
Many of them are serving in underserved communities.
right? And
Yeah.
when Michelle and Barack even said when they graduated, they had $450,000 worth of loans
Yes.
between the two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. When
I guess
you
the thing is
when-
it like, are they like on a garnishing because you're at all? You know, because like if you're paying down debt, but down bit by bit by bit by bit, you know, that's one thing for someone saying, hey, you know, I haven't
And
touched
that's
my
where
loans
the-
in 10 years.
And the thing about it is, it really needs to be on a case by case basis. If that, you know,
But
why
that was
not
the
set-
whole point of
Yeah.
deferment, though. The whole point of deferment was
It was not forgiveness.
no,
It was
it was
deferment.
deferment.
Some people
because-
thought it was forgiveness. though.
But-
Some people thought it was that.
And but
Well, it was forgiveness,
you-
I believe, in some instances, if you were working in a certain capacity in a certain place, like for schools,
Right.
for example, if people.
but even if you were
are
like
commit to
public
be teaching.
wait a minute, no, not just that. Even if and I found this part out,
Mhm.
even if you were a public defender, a
Uh-huh.
lawyer, or any public type
Right,
sector,
right.
whether it was teaching, whether it was you being a nurse or a doctor.
A public servant,
I
yeah.
don't know about doctors, but I know for sure public servants,
Right.
public
I think
defenders.
depending on where you live at, something like that. Like,
And police officers,
Maybe so.
yeah,
Maybe so.
fire department,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I mean, don't quote me on that. I mean, I think that's what it was for because like, I was living in Florida.
It was an incentive, it was an incentive.
I got like something. I guess also like as a something put on my taxes or what. That's a tax. That's a student wants to pay it back. When I was slow down.
That's okay.
Okay, I was living in Florida because I teach Title I school was there. I got something back to put on my student loans. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, yeah.
So my thing is this: like you have these people who have, because even Biden, the Biden Harris administration couldn't forgive some of these loans
Yeah,
because some of these loans was just outrageous.
Yeah.
Right. But my thing is, you know, but a lot of these government jobs that you fired and cut folk from, they were also handling
Mhm.
those folks' student loans.
and they had student loans, and now they don't have a job.
So, so this is what I'm saying, and like, I didn't have loans. My
Right.
parents were fortunate enough to pay for my college education.
Right.
Okay, I think I had loans the first year. My dad was like, "Bump this. I'm paying for whatever it is." You know, but everybody is not fortunate enough to have a father and a mother who can pay for their college education. So my thing is, how, like, what is that going to do?
And you know what, y'all? I'm gonna tell you, I'm a person who, you know, there are some people who will say this. I don't vote for politicians based on they'll say, I don't vote for politicians based on whether or not they have character. It's all about character to me because your character is going to be played out in every other aspect of your life. How can you be someone? How can you be someone who says, if you make loans, you need to pay your debts,
Here,
and you not be a person who's ever had that type of personal character to live up to that standard?
I think there's a couple of things at play here. Number one, it's the one thing that I've noticed about how President Trump operates. He'll say something, people will jump all over what
Yeah.
he says, but when you actually read the devil in the details, it could be something that is maybe not exactly what he said.
Because he said it, nobody ain't read nothing.
Well, here's the thing about that though. People getting all people get all caught up in what he said. Because one of my friends, I was going to share the story. Let me share the story with y'all or not. One of my friends actually works for the Democratic Party here.
Mhm.
She was telling me, she was like, the fact that we're getting up, she said, what we Dems isn't getting up every time Trump says something, we jump on social media stuff like that. She said, that's not doing us any favors. Her words, not mine.
Mhm.
Because if something does hit the fan, we would have spent so much time jumping on
Menial,
everything
but yeah.
here. It's like the boy that cried wolf. You spend your time going after everything that he says. A lot of it could be trying to troll you. He does that.
Yeah.
I wish he didn't at times, but that's what he does. That's his style with that. I guess it works for him, you know. So be
Yeah,
it.
but my thing is, this is you playing with people's lives, though. This is not a show.
Oh, it's a game to him.
Well,
That's a
No,
game.
but no. When you have people who are sitting in $480,000 loan debt,
But we,
and they have to decide, do I pay this loan or do I pay this mortgage?
Yeah.
Right? No, I hear what you're saying, but some stuff, and I don't disagree with her, but when this is people's lives, these people livelihood.
but once again,
People are trying to stand up. You know, it's bad enough you stand up trying to figure out, okay, I gotta get groceries, I gotta pay this mortgage, I gotta save up for my kids' college education, because now clearly we can't rely on loans if they don't get scholarships and grants, because a lot of that has been cut out.
Yeah.
No, you playing with people's lives and emotions and stuff.
but you
But you know
also
what?
said
But you have a
come out
person-
and either.
But you have you have a person with the type of style. The modus operandi is to leave people in a dangling mode where they don't know what's going on. That's the whole thing. Okay, when people are left hanging where you don't know what's going on behind, you can pretty much manipulate them in any way you want. One more thing.
Sure.
Let's bring it a little closer to home.
Okay. Let's see.
HISD,
Okay.
pay for performance. Your thoughts. No more teacher step. So if you've been there 30 years, or if you've been there 5 years, you could very well be making the same thing. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
There was something, and we actually went through this because this actually came up because last time you had you have those TIA monies and whatnot, which like teachers that rate like so much get like this big bonus.
Teacher incentive allotment.
Yeah.
Yes. TIA money comes up, right? So there've been so it's like what happens sometimes is if people get this TIA money, and of course this is one thing that we actually saw.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the principals, because I got friends principals, they told me this stuff. They've gotten pinched because they've given out ratings that maybe
Not accurate.
not accurate ratings stuff like that. Yeah, so that's because of that. Because like how can you have all these teachers say who are distinguished, for example, but you're getting F grades in schools?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that probably could be
Yeah.
what some of that actually is, maybe.
Now I think
But my
isn't it
thing
going to be
is still ain't
tied
gonna be
to?
fair.
Isn't it
Yeah.
going to be tied to their state?
Okay, so let me tell you, I can actually speak in that
Yeah.
on this.
How are they going to do
Because
that?
the Führer explained it
Okay.
when he took over. I, that's the
Okay.
that,
Okay.
I know
I'm sorry.
that's our superintendent.
Okay. So how are they going to do this?
I'm slow today.
Okay, so this is how he explained it when he first became the Führer.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that the way it's going to work
Mhm.
is that in order to get this money,
Mhm.
in order for a teacher to get this money, they are going to have to be approved by campus administration.
Oh well, that in itself
Hold on.
is that in itself
No,
is,
no,
is
no.
not equitable.
No,
Okay.
I'm not done. I wish I was, but I'm not.
Okay.
Then once you pass campus administration, then you have to go sit with regional administration.
Wow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to approve you. Then once you get through regional administration, you have to sit with all of the EDs
Mm-hmm.
of the district.
It's almost impressive.
Then once you get
Almost
past
impressive. Goodness.
them,
Not to me, because basically what you're ending
wait,
up with.
I'm not done. Y'all, I'm not done.
Okay.
Then you have to sit with the board
Uh-huh.
for them to decide. And that's not even the last part.
Mhm.
Then you have to write a 5-page essay
Mm-hmm.
to determine why you believe you deserve the money. And then you get the money.
Okay, so okay. Now you know what, Rebecca? You just shed the light on some things that a lot of people don't even realize, because there is a teacher from my school who just interviewed with HISD, who had been at HISD before. They left and they said, "Did y'all hear that money they're gonna be giving? I'm going back." I said, "You know what? Check that out really thoroughly before you
And
jump."
he said that, and I heard him say that on two occasions.
Uh-huh.
We were all at NRG
Yeah.
because I paid attention to that.
Yeah.
I said, "So you mean to tell me if I'm denied, and I'm a distinguished teacher according to my campus rating,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm denied at the regional level, then
Well, and see, to me, whether they like you or not,
Mhm.
if you're going to be equitable with that kind of thing, if your test scores show a certain thing, then you need to be eligible for that bonus.
so it's the test scores. All of that plays a role. So it's the test scores, it's the interview process, and that's the entire
You see,
interview.
the whole interview process thing is a way to get a whole bunch of yes men on board who are saying the right things.
And not
who
only
are-
that,
yeah.
you have to have so many hours of after school. You have to participate in leadership.
And that's what I told my sister. I said, you know what?
You have to
Just for that, do you remember that $10,000 that when we first came back that year? They said all the teachers are gonna get a $10,000 bonus. You weren't all Dean then, but you remember when we first came back,
Mhm.
when they first took over that year. It's always strings attached to that. First of all, they doled it out in some kind of little tiny increments here, and you had to do this
I saw
part,
that.
and you had to do this part,
About that.
and then you had to do this and this,
Right.
and then you may not get it here if you didn't come to this meeting, and it was the kind of
Right.
thing.
And then
Yeah.
on top of that, you have to be in leadership position on your campus. You have to be in some sort of leadership capacity. You have to lead a PLC. For those of our audience who don't know what PLC is, it's a professional learning community. It's basically meetings that teachers have to go through too amongst themselves.
And it's you have to do a lot of after school and after. But see, here's the thing: don't just say when you come to HISD you get this bonus. You have to put in so much extra time,
Right. And then
so
you
much
have to
even be eligible for
right.
that.
And then on top of that, you can't have so many absences. You can't.
You see, even though you're allotted 10 by the
Yes.
state.
Like for NI, like basically like NES,
Yes.
or is that something else?
No. This is for the entire district.
Yep.
This is for the entire district.
To be eligible.
To be eligible
Yeah.
to get the extra money.
Yeah.
Is this in addition to the pay you would get from NES campus? No, that's like something.
No, that's getting ready to be done.
The salary, yeah, the salary,
And it's,
Yeah, that's getting ready.
the salary. They'll still use the curriculum, but it won't be an extra salary attached
So
to
the
it. Yeah.
TIA money, the teacher incentive, but it's not called teacher incentive allotment anymore. It's called the Teacher Excellence System, TES. So, right. So, because from what I understand from other districts who use the TIA allotment,
Mhm.
they go strictly by your test scores.
Yes.
And that's it, pretty much.
Yes.
But for ours, for a teacher excellence system, which supposed to be on the same premise
Mhm.
as the teacher incentive allotment, this is where all this extraness come from. Right? So you have to be in leadership in some type of capacity at your school. You have to stay after school. You have to
Come on weekends.
come on weekends. In addition to having all of these interviews, in addition to writing this essay on why you deserve the money.
And John, let's be clear.
sure.
All of that. Let's say you pass all of those. You jump through all of those respective little hoops,
Sure.
and then in the middle of the year or something, you say something and it pisses off someone.
Yeah.
Then all that's off the table. Let's
Right.
be clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's not-
Or but and then just to say you get all the way up to the board.
Mhm.
Let's just say you cleared everything, you right there.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, if 2 board members vote against you, you're not getting the money.
And the thing about it is, you're already in this process because you've already been hired with the school. It's too late for you to go and say, I'm done with this. I don't want to be bothered. You're locked into a contract with them for a year with all that other extra that comes along with that too.
So just imagine.
Yeah.
And I agree with you when you said people have to have their ducks in a row because, like you had told people, Crystal,
Yeah.
that money ain't gonna last forever.
No.
All of this money that y'all was
Everybody said that. They said, all of these high salaries and everything, where's that money going to come from? And especially when that bond didn't pass.
right.
where's that money? How are they gonna
Everyone
pay
knew
those
that bond's
people?
not gonna pass though. That bond's not gonna pass. We all knew that.
It would have, it had it been anyone else, it would have passed.
Not for $4 billion.
Maybe.
No,
That's
no,
a strong maybe.
but you know what?
Not for no 4.4
Thank
billion.
you. Yeah.
Because that
was
bond
not
was
gonna
the
pass.
largest bond in
Crystal,
the
that was not
United States
Crystal, that was
of
not gonna
America.
pass.
Okay.
That's not gonna pass.
But let's say this.
It wasn't.
Let's be clear about this. A $2 billion bond, a $1 billion bond wouldn't have passed for this superintendent.
Yeah, of course.
Because people were voting, they were not voting against the bond.
They were
They were voting against the student.
But like John
We
said,
voted against it too, so yeah.
yeah, like John said, a $4.4 billion bond wasn't gonna pass
Yeah.
nowhere. I don't care
Yeah.
who was superintendent.
That's true.
Like it's just that was just way too much.
It was
money
too much to ask for.
for
Yeah.
right at a time.
Yeah.
So, but that's how the teacher excellence system is. So all of the teachers, let me forewarn you, all these teachers who think that, oh my God, I'm getting ready to get all this money, I'm getting ready to make all of this bread, and
Yeah.
I'm leaving my district
Yeah.
to go to HISD and make all of this money.
We tried to say that. We tried to say that. Yeah.
Understand, this is where this is what you're going to. On top of, you have to have a score. So you have to have a score of proficient 1 or proficient 2. So that means you have to have a 9 or above every single time you're being observed. Every single time.
Wow.
So the standards is so he knows what he's doing.
You know what, Rebecca, what I want you to do? What you have just outlined for us, I want you to pull those requirements, because that's the kind of thing we need to post that.
Yes.
Because people need to know that don't quit your day job. Like people
Because
say,
people-
don't quit until you know exactly what's involved
Because
in all of
But
that.
he said it at NRG. I was just like, and I'm looking at everybody else to see everybody else's reaction. Like,
Do you mean NRG the year that we went? Or the
yeah,
year- Okay, I don't remember anything he said. I don't remember anything he said that year. I don't. I thought maybe when y'all went back the next year.
no.
Oh, okay.
No, because remember the salary thing was but he said that this was what it was going to come to. And a matter of fact, I think I have.
He did say it was going to be performance based. But performance based, I have always been a teacher that got when a performance based, was it called Achieve? No, not Achieve. It was called
That's fine.
Aspire. I have always gotten the top bonuses with Aspire.
I think you
But
were
it was-
a curriculum writer at HISD at that time, weren't you?
I was TDS.
TDS.
But here's my thing with that. Even with all of that, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And I'm gonna tell you why. And I understand wanting to hold teachers accountable and all that other stuff. I get it.
Yeah.
But please understand, there are teachers in this district who don't have the top of the top kids.
That's right.
You have teachers in this district. All they can give you is a 0.5% growth.
And that's all
Because
they're looking for,
that-
growth. Yeah.
But I'm
With
saying,
Aspire, they were. With
yeah,
Aspire.
but
Yeah.
I'm saying some teachers can produce you is 0.5%.
That's right.
Because that's all they
That's
get.
what they're working with. Yeah.
You know, our old principal used to say all the time, they not leaving their best children at home
Right.
and giving us
They're bringing you their best.
What they got.
they
That's what they got.
exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So why not just pay teachers what they're worth?
That's right.
Right? We are already the lowest paid profession. And when I say profession, I mean out of all the careers, engineering, law, doctors, we are the lowest architects, we are the lowest
As
paid
professional people, yeah.
professional anyway. So why not pay when people come into the teaching profession? They already know they're not gonna make a whole bunch of money unless they're in administration, either at the campus level or at the district level. But when you come into education as a teacher, you already know that you're not about to be balling out of control. You know this already. So why not pay teachers what they worth?
So Rebecca and John, with that in mind, and I 100% agree with what Rebecca just said. And like our old principal used to say, they're bringing you the best that they have.
Yeah,
the
they
parents are
not
bringing you
leaving
the
their
that they
best
have.
children at
Yeah.
home and sending you the leftovers.
Yeah.
This is what they got.
With that in mind, I want Rebecca for you to leave us with one thought to contemplate this week about what we've talked about, and I want you to do the same thing, John. Yeah.
Get out and vote.
Please.
Please.
Please. Please.
please, that's it. Go out and vote.
And if you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, you don't have to tell them who you voted for.
You know, it don't matter. Just
Yeah.
go out and vote.
Yeah.
The problem that America, Texas, and Houston is having
Yes.
is the apatheticness.
That's right. The apathy is horrible.
But everything that you do requires a law.
That's right.
You can't throw nothing in your trash can at your house without a law.
That's right.
So
And if you throw the wrong thing in, you'll break the law.
exactly.
Yeah.
So everything you do. So I hate when people say, "Well, I don't want to be involved in politics. I'm not."
I love it.
Oh gosh.
But
I love it, Christy.
That
but
breaks me, but I don't want it to feel that way. I want to be someone
But
who can help
politics-
overcome that.
it's your life.
Yes, it is.
Everything that you do has everything. Your profession, your payments, your saving. Everything has a law attached to it.
That's right.
And there are people, like John said, there are people who go and vote for those laws that are attached to your life.
That's right.
So why not go vote and
Have a stake in it.
have a stake in? Don't, like, people, when you don't go vote, you are saying, I will let anybody control
Me. That's right.
whatever decision they
And
make.
don't complain about it when you don't get the kind of control that you want.
Exactly. Go vote. It's everybody there. If we have learned nothing in these 2 or 3 election cycles, voting has consequences. When you don't vote, also has consequences.
And John Branch. Final thought.
Sure. I'm going to say this to
I
people
love
who are
it.
watching, who are elected officials who are watching too. Pay attention, people. The voters out there, go vote. Yes, I agree with that 10,000% many times over.
Yes.
But pay attention to who you're supporting.
Right.
Let me tell y'all something. I'm going to give y'all a little secret. The politicians who are watching, they love apathy. Do you know why they love apathy?
That keeps them in
Because they
office.
keep their job. That's why. So voters, what I need y'all to do is, so this is your friend from the right telling people in general, get involved in every election, in every level. Become a precinct chair if you're not one. When town halls come to play, show up. And I mean show up in droves, show up in spades. Don't just show up when they're telling you to be outraged about.
And ask the questions.
Something.
Ask the questions.
Ask the questions. Go to your phones. We have computers right here, which are very good. We got computers. You can pull up Texas legislative session.
Yeah.
You can see what your state rep, what your state senator is doing. You could say, hey, what are you doing here? And they keep a log of who goes. They keep a log of who shows up. They do pay attention. I've reached out to state reps. They all responded. They all come back because they all watch and they all pay attention.
That's right.
So everyone who's on, people, voters, do not give up. Do not give up hope. You get up every day. You put on your pants one leg at a time. You walk. You breathe. You can do anything. And guess what? You have to begin to like what you're doing with this. You have to get involved on every single level. You have to. You have to. Because we're going to have the same conversation here from about election cycles.
Right.
It's going to happen again. But, and then the final place I'm going to go soon. Be willing to check your loyalties.
Yeah.
Be
You're
willing
right.
to check your loyalties.
Yeah.
If you're voting for someone every day because they're familiar with them, etc., maybe you have to look in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that no more.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not personal.
It's not. Yeah.
But do not be guilted into supporting someone who deep down you know is not good. That's what I got.
And you know what, John? My last thought would be this, and I say this all the time, and I say this especially to my students.
Mhm.
It would do my heart so good to see some 25-year-olds
Yes.
and 30-year-olds
Yes.
and 22-year-olds
Yes.
sitting in some of these seats.
Amen.
You
Give me
know,
some. Give me
yes.
some.
You know, if you were old enough to vote
Mhm.
in most elections in this country, especially municipal ones,
Mhm.
you're old enough to hold office.
Ooh.
You are.
I thought
Don't let,
you had to be 21 to hold office in Texas.
nope. Go check out, and this is wonderful. Go check out our own Pearland City Council, 18 years old. Okay, now it depends on your municipality, but generally, if you are 18 years old and you're old enough to cast a vote, in some municipalities, and I think in most of them, you're old enough to hold office. However, there needs to be a mixture. There needs to be a mixture of all demographics that you see in society who are at the table making decisions for society.
Mhm.
Not just people whose hair has turned white. Not just people who are have to take their teeth out of the bag and put them on. There's nothing wrong with that because they should be there too.
Yes.
But there needs to be a mixture of everyone. The way that this country looks, that needs to be at the table when decisions are being made. I so strongly um, feel this way about the way that our country is going in. We cannot leave it up to someone else to make all the decisions for us anymore.
Amen.
And especially people who have no touch point as to what our lives have been like.
Mhm.
Let's put some of these people in office who can mirror our own experience.
Like a John or a Crystal, put us in office.
Or Rebecca. That's right. That's right. But Rebecca and John, what can I tell you? I want to thank you so much for coming. I think we had some pretty good topics of conversation.
This is fun.
And we'll be back because we've got our resident conservative who comes in and he can show the other philosophy and thought and ideology on the things that we're all dealing with. We have lived a certain life. John has lived a certain life. Rebecca has lived a certain life. And all of us bring to the table a different perspective.
Mhm.
And that's what's important. Okay? And are we tearing each other's heads off?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
When we leave here, we might go get something to eat. I don't know. So we are not, if nothing else, we should be an example to people out there as to how things can get done. Just like we're sitting at this table and we had this conversation, I can guarantee you that if Rebecca and John and I had to sit at this table and come up with a decision or some legislation, we could get it done.
Yes.
We may not agree on everything, but we would know how to compromise enough so that when we opened that door and walked outside, we'd have the job done.
At 3 or 4 in the morning.
Even if it's that's absolutely right. But guys, thank you guys so much for coming, and we are welcoming your comments. We're going to get this set up so that we can see your comments again real time, because we used to be able to see them, didn't we, Rebecca?
Mhm.
Before YouTube was on there, we could see those real time. So I'm gonna because we like to respond to people's comments. I'm gonna see how we can get that set up so that we can still see your comments real time. But guys, like we say, but we want to see your comments anyway, and we will respond to them. John will get on, I will get on, Rebecca will get on. If you have comments, please leave them, and we are going to definitely answer some of the questions or concerns that you may have. But if you have some things that you would like to see Rebecca and John and I talk about on here, some things that are troubling you, some challenges or concerns, you need to leave them in the comments so we'll know,
Yes,
we'll know
please.
to dig in there. And this is not the last you'll see of us, but guys, like we say every week, we can do it.
Bye,
See you later.
guys.
Wait, John.